In this video, I'm going to show you how to create and manage invoices in Tally accounts. There are three different ways to create invoices. Firstly, from the front dashboard, you can just click Create Invoice from the top of the screen. Alternatively, if you go into the Invoices module on the left hand side, you've got the option just to hit the Create button and that will create a new invoice. The third method is from the customer screen. If you click into a customer, you'll have the option to create an invoice directly from the screen itself. If you go into the Invoices module on the left hand side, there are some additional options at the top of the screen. One of these is to set up repeat invoices. If you have a lot of repeat work and recurring invoices, you can click on repeat invoice and create a new invoice in here. We can then put in a description in here, so I could just put weekly work. Choose a customer who it's for. Do you want to automatically email that to a customer? And then you can just add your line in here, and I can just put weekly work. I can put in my rate in here. And then underneath, we can set our duration. So basically create indefinitely or a set amount of times or until a specific date. And on the right hand side, we can set our frequency. So whether that's going to be annual, monthly, multi-monthly, or as this is going to be weekly. And then I can say, right, every single Friday, I want you to go and create this invoice and send it across to my customer. We can put in our date substitutions in here. So again, if we're doing monthly or annual, you can put name of the current month, last month, next year, etc. And we can just add that in. And then all we do is just hit save, and that is now set up as a repeat invoice. So if you go to your Invoices module and look at repeat invoices, you'll see all of your customers, the description of the work, the amounts, when the next due date for that to be generated is, and also the frequency listed in here. If you go through to the customer record, so if we click through the customers and click into these guys, then basically under invoices and stats on the right hand side, you'll be able to see a full list of any recurring invoices that are set up on the system. If you go into invoices, there's also an option at the top of the page to start setting up your sales codes. So by default, we have sale of goods, sales type 1, 2 and 3 within the system. We can add in new codes just by typing in a new number and then putting whatever you want to be called in here. So you might want to break out where your revenue comes in from or label it on your invoices. So if I just click into sales type 1, I can just go and rename that to labour. So I can start recording my transactions against labour. We can also pre-fill. So I can come in here and just put weekly work. And then I can put my value, which means every time I choose labour on an invoice, it will pre-fill to this value. And then hit update. If I go into sales type 2, I can then break this down. This is going to be my materials. I don't need to pre-fill that information because my materials is always going to be a different value. And underneath, again, the description may always be different as well. It means if you have different sales that you want to split out within your business and some of those are 0 rated for VAT, you can come in here and just put 0 rated, and every time you choose this code from the drop down list, it'll know which VAT rate needs to be assigned against it. And if you hit update, you can just continue to add various things and breakouts to this list as and when you need to. So once we go into invoices and start creating new ones, all we do is hit the create button at the top of the screen. We can see it's come through as invoice number 2, but I can renumber that, and again that will just go up in sequential order. We can then either choose an existing customer we want to generate an invoice for, or if I hit the plus sign, I can just quickly create a new customer record from here. We can add in a purchase order reference number that we can go back to, and it will bring through the customer's address from their customer record, or we could specify to use a different address if we wanted. It's brought through their payment terms, so we can see that my payment terms have been set up for this customer, and that's been brought through onto the invoice itself. These dates could be amended as and when you need to. It defaults to British pounds, but if you are using multi-currency, you will be able to switch between currencies on this screen. To add information to this, all we do is just click Add Line Item, and we can see it's defaulted to Sale of Goods. And again, you can just type in here whatever you want, and there's no limits to how many characters you can put in here. and then either key in the net rate or just key in the gross figure and it will calculate the net rate for you. You can adjust the VAT rate where applicable as well. And then we can just continue to add multiple lines. So we saw earlier I've set up my labour and my materials, so I can break that out, and you can see my labour is now pre-filled to weekly work at £1,000, and that information has gone straight in. I still have the ability to amend that as and when needed. I can then continue to just type in the description and the materials that I've purchased and put in the values in here, and you can choose how you want this invoice to be laid out. Once you've done that, just hit save in the top right hand side of the screen, and invoice 2 has now been saved in the system. So if we go to invoices now, we can now see invoice number 1 and invoice number 2, any purchase order references, the dates when they were generated, the due dates, values, and the status of those are listed as unpaid. If we go into the customer now and we go through, we'll see that under invoices and stats, we can see that they have an unpaid invoice for £2,500. And we can drill into that invoice directly from the customer screen. At the top of the page, you have the ability to edit. So if you ever need to make an amendment on an invoice, just click the edit button, go in and change any details you need to, change any descriptions, etc. And then once you've done that, just hit the save button and that will save that back in. If it's an invoice that hasn't been included on a VAT return and you no longer need it, you can just hit the delete icon in the top right hand side of the screen and that will delete the invoice from the system. Also, if you do a lot of repeat work and similar work, we do have a copy button. So if you hit copy, we can now copy that across to a new invoice, and now you can see it's invoice number 3. I can just go change the customer who it's for, and we can also amend any details if needed, and then hit save, and that's now created invoice number 3 and it's duplicated those details. So it's very easy to do that on any transactions within the system. If we scroll down, we have the option to print it off as a PDF, or again, if we click email, it will bring up the client's email address. The invoice is coming from me, and then if I click on the invoice itself, this is just going to show me what that invoice looks like in our PDF format. If we go back and our other options against an invoice, we can add notes and files, so we can add any information we want against the invoice. And if we click into payments, we have the ability to add a new payment in. If I add a payment, all I need to do is put in the payment date, the payment amount, so whether it was a full payment or just a part payment, the bank account it's gone into, and the payment method. So say this was cash. And then we can just put a note in here that's going to appear in that bank transaction. So I'll put payment on invoice 3, save. And basically that has now done a £1,000 payment against this invoice. We can see at the top that £1,600 is still due. And if we go into the bank and we go to view and add that transaction, we'll be able to now see that that £1,000 money coming in has also been listed in the bank against invoice number 3. If we go to the customer screen as well, you'll be able to see that under American Apartments in here, that £1,000 value, so we've done £1,000 worth of business and £1,600 is still outstanding. And if I click into there, we can see the invoice still listed as unpaid because we haven't paid it in full yet, but we can see the payments on the right hand side. If we click back into that invoice, we can continue to add the rest of the payment. So £1,600 is left. If I hit save, we can now see our 2 payments listed on here, and at the top we can see that invoice is now status is paid. So if we go to our invoice list, we can see that that invoice has now been paid. And you can show, if you want to just see what's been paid, what's overdue, what's been overpaid or unpaid, directly from the invoice screen. You would have also seen the option, if you want the ability to take debit or credit card payments, you can also do that by setting up your card options within the system, and we work with various providers. So if the customer phoned me up, or if I was out and I had Tally accounts open on my phone, I can just take card payment and then take the client's credit card or debit card details, and that would just go and authorise a payment directly through the system. Alternatively, if you email out an invoice and include a Pay Now button, then when your clients receive this email in their inbox, they'll have a pay online button on it where they can just click on that, and that will just take them through to a website. And we're actually integrating ours with WorldPay. I can continue to go and enter my debit or credit card details in here and make a direct payment against the invoice, so the money will come into your bank and it will mark the invoice off as paid. The other options at the top of the page is batch payment. So if you've got multiple transactions that you want to pay off in one go, if you click batch payment, you can multiple select those and it will create one bank transaction, and you can put the details for the transaction. There might be a check from a customer that covers multiple invoices. You can just pay that off directly from here. And that's how easy it is to do the settings on invoices and start creating sales invoices and marking them off and paid through Tally accounts.